Ouko from Crime Support. My understanding of what it means to be a man is just being a man of honor, being a man of integrity, being a man of your word. So to me, and to what I do at Crime Support, is about how we raise a generation that stands by its word, that keeps off all the negativity and focuses on the goal ahead and keeps its word.
Hello everybody, how you doing? This is your coach and your friend Robert Broale, and of course this is the best show in Eastern Central Africa, south of the Sahara and north of Limpopo. And I hear you ask, which show is this? Well, this is the Omen Show, and thank you for, of course, making this date possible with us. And for those of you who watched last week's show with Benjamin Molo and Jim Watt on matters addictions and crime, thank you for all the messages that we've been sending, and people are getting help. And thank you to also, of course, Mr. Benjamin Amolo and Jim Watt for opening their scars for people to get healed. Well, today I have a great man, somebody that I know personally, but a man who is changing lives. But before he got to a place of changing lives, his life also changed. Well, I promise you a bumper show. Mr. Pete Ouko, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks Robert.
It's very good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Asante sana. Hapa karibu hapa ndio Omen Show.
Naona ni Omen.
Kabisa. Mambo ya wanaume.
Kabisa.
And as we've said time and time again, this is a show that is not looking for perfect men, but looking for men who want to be better tomorrow than they are today. Today, hold on tight. Get your coffee together, have your glass of water, because you will need it. Pete.
So, boss.
We see you here very confident, very, you know, the alpha male. You are actually the alpha male.
I don't know what that means.
No, you are.
Even if to be soma, to be
ule mwanaume, watu wanasema huyu ni mwanaume. Young men would want to have the confidence and the presence, because you have a presence. And but you've been through a journey as well. First and foremost, tell us, who is Pete?
Yeah, thanks for that, Robert. You see, the thing is, I'm amazed when you say I have a presence, because naturally I'm a very shy guy.
Are you?
I'm very shy by nature. So maybe that's just a mask,
right?
A veneer that I put on top. But then, I think the presence you're talking about is just the presence of God.
Amen.
Because without God, me, I'm nothing. So basically, I don't see myself in all this. I see God, and I want God to be seen in all this. So
Amen. Besides
just having Pete, Pete is a Kenyan. He's a father to 2 adults now. Pete runs Crime Support, but above all, Pete loves God. Okay. And the key thing is that God is at the center of my life in everything.
Right.
And it's just because of his grace and mercies. I mean, he cleared school, went into business at 19, and then did all through, you know, the runarounds for young people.
Of course. Got
married very young. And then in 98, I got wrongfully arrested, charged.
In fact, before we go there,
yeah.
You married young. You have a son and a daughter.
Yeah, those are almost, my son is almost 30 now, my daughter is somewhere there. You don't mention the girl's age.
Okay. But yes, you married young.
Yeah.
And I think when one was 3, another one was 5, something happened.
Yeah, when one was 3, one was 5, I lost their mom in a gruesome murder. Then, long story, I mean, those things just break you. You know, you're 28, you've lost a 24-year-old wife, you have young kids, and then you're being told you've done it.
So they accused you for murdering your wife?
Yep.
Besides the authorities accusing you, would you be comfortable telling us how she was found, where she was found?
Yeah, in as much as the matter is sub judice, because I'm in court right now, even though I'm home, I'm in court to clear my name. I want total exoneration, so the matter is in court, so there's some aspects I can't touch on.
And we respect
yeah, but the sad thing is that she was found murdered outside Buruburu police station. And so I was called, I was told that's what had happened. I went there, and then some people of influence, I won't name them here, just said, lock this guy up. So I ended up being locked. I mean, I went to the police station to be appraised on what had happened to my wife. I went to get information.
Not knowing you'll be arrested?
No, I went there innocently, like I wanted to know. I mean, these are young. The body's been found right outside the police station. You know, one of the best guarded places. So what would I expect? I'd expect information from the cops.
Absolutely.
In Buruburu. So that's what I went there to find out. Yeah, but then somebody somewhere there, God rest his soul in peace, he passed on, just said this guy should be. In fact, the words he said, weka huyu mtu ndani. And know those are the days when there are people who could give police orders. We had a very, very sad situation pre, the changes that came in the police force, where people with vested interests could tell police, do this or do that or do that, for their own ends. At that point, of course, I was bewildered. I didn't know why someone had known at that level would say something like that. And then it hit me that, I had young kids and I had to be strong for them. So from that moment on, the moment they said, Weka Umutundani, I was like, what for? I ended up being in police custody for 30 days. I wasn't taken to court. I was just hanging out at Buruburu. There was no evidence, there was nothing. So I was just hanging out at Buruburu police station for 30 days. Then I remember writing a complaint to the then Attorney General, which we smuggled out of the police cells, and it got published. So that infuriated them. The cops were there at that time. And then they were like, so metushtaki, so we are taking you to court. But they're taking me to court, there's no committal bundle, there's no evidence, there's nothing. So I was taken to court, charged, taken to industrial area, but with all cases, like in murder cases, you're supposed to be given that committal bundle that says why you've been arrested, and the evidence against you, and there was nothing. So after 2 weeks, after 1 month, the court made an order that I shouldn't be in prison, I should be taken back to police until they produce those, the evidence, the necessary evidence.
But
so,
in this, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Where is your son? Where is your daughter? Their mother has been murdered.
Their
father.
They've been whisked away.
By who? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
They've been whisked away. Basically, I don't want to bring them into this, and they've been whisked away and taken from me, yanked from me. So it's a long story. I mean, it's a healing thing, and I normally want to give them that space to heal and just to love. Whatever they went through, no one should go through. Let me just cut it at that moment. Whatever those kids went through, no one.
You'd not wish that even for your worst enemy.
No one, not even for my worst enemy. And I think it's just important that we be people of truth. If you have anything against Pete, just tell Pete I have this against you, but don't take it out on some innocent souls.
Yeah.
Pete might have the resilience, Pete might have the strength, the faith, to wear it out. But their lives you shouldn't just mess. And then, but that's unfortunately that's what happened. But I'm just grateful that God was there for them, even though they lost their mom, their dad had been taken away, but they had the bigger dad up there who took good care of them. So I knew they were in good hands. I mean, I was praying for them nonstop, just cheering them on, even though I didn't know, where they were.
So now, you're told that the police is ordered to give the document. So you're taken back to police.
Then another month.
At Buruburu?
Yeah, I was in Buruburu for 60 days. 2 months basically, just hanging there. And now the law is very clear. You should not be in police custody for more than 14 days back then. Right now it's 48 hours.
Yes.
But back then I was kept for 30 days, another 30 days.
So 16 total. 16 total. But give us a picture of what is going through your mind at that time. Because you use the word resilience. Mm-hmm. Young man, 28, lost your 24-year-old wife. That's already a man who is grieving.
Yeah. And
then you're here worried now as a father. So you are dealing with two things. A father, worried about the children.
And a widower.
And a widower.
Yeah.
I mean, what kept you sane? Because I want to take a step by step. What kept you sane?
My faith.
Right.
I mean, the thing I knew this was external, so it wasn't about me. I mean, my heart was clear, my conscience was clear. So what was I worrying about? I don't care what you want to call me. I don't care what you want to label me. I care about what God calls me and labels me.
Right.
So I think that's when my faith kicked in. And because prior to going to prison, I remember, I'd gotten born again when I was in high school. And then I'd backslidden. I just decided to be a rude, crazy boy. And then I think at that point, God was just drawing my attention. Because I remember my late wife used to tell me, kuna pali utakuwa siku moja, you'll have to remember your God. She just used to tell me these things, but I was like, what's this girl talking about? Because we were both young people. And at that time, I was like, okay, fine, you've said it. But I remember just being in police custody, and I was like, what did Jenny used to tell me? Could this be it? And then I just said, God, you have a sense of humor. If this is how you wanted to arrest my attention, then you've got the best sense of humor. You've got it. And so I just said, it's God humoring himself with me. And so I took it easy.
And in all that time, I'm sure you knew you'd be exonerated. I mean, you know you are innocent.
Yeah.
So you knew when it goes to court, they'll just set you free.
Yeah, I mean, everybody around me, everyone was like, these are fast, so let's go through the justice system. That time, I'll be very honest with you, it was very easy to bribe your way out. For 3,000 bob, I know guys were paying 3,000 bob and then witnesses were not coming to court. You pay 20,000 bob, case is done. And I had it. In fact, I had it in cash. But my conscience could not allow me. That's not how I was brought up. I was not brought up to bribe people. And my conscience could not allow me to pay 3,000 bob to be set free for something I had not done. So I said, I'm going to stick it. And I told my mom straight, I'm going to stick this. It's not easy on you. My mom suffered immensely. I knew my kids were suffering immensely. My family, my friends, everyone suffered immensely. Because you see, the thing is, I didn't have my set of friends and Jenny had a set of friends. We had joint friends.
Right.
Yeah. So Jenny's friends were my friends. My friends were Jenny's friends. So at that stage, they all know the truth, but then they can't understand how the system is working.
Did you lose some friends?
Pardon me?
Did you lose any friends?
No. They walked with me all this journey and they stuck with me and they brought more friends. So that constantly gave me strength, But then at the basis of it all is, why would this be happening at this point in time? So to me, I took it like, okay, I think I need to learn. So God wants to teach me something. So I just said, all my burdens, chukua. Yeah, I want to be light. This weight, I can't carry it. So what was going through my mind, by the way you asked me, I decided to forgive guys from day one because I wasn't going to carry that bitterness. It was too heavy. If you carry that kind of bitterness, you carry the bitterness you're talking about of, your kids being yanked away from you, your wife having been killed, and the people who've killed her can be easily found. But then why is someone just narrowing down on you and why are they saying it's you? Of course, you'd go to prison and people are saying, if it's not you, then why do you think they picked you? You'd get those kinds of questions, And of course, you'd have those people look at you from the side like, really?
Are you sure you didn't do it?
Are you sure you didn't do it? That kind of stuff. As I told you, the key thing is, once you know the truth and the truth has set you free, you just have to walk in freedom. So my life in prison for 18 years, every single morning I would wake up, take a shower, be ready to go home. I knew the day would come.
Let's go back. I want to have a mental picture of the day now you're in court and you have been sentenced.
Yeah, I'm in court with my lawyer, George Maura. Mom is there, family is there.
Yeah.
And then I went for the judgment the first time, and then for some strange reason, it was ready, but it was not read. I won't tell you what happened. I won't tell you why. I don't know. There was drama, in the judiciary we had then. It's not the judiciary we have right now. There was lots of drama. So a judgment could be ready, but it could be delayed for as long as the presiding officer, if that's what he wanted. And so you're there, it's not read, then you're told come back after 2 weeks. Then you come back after 2 weeks, you're in court, judgment is being read, then you start getting bewildered because where is that coming from? That was not in evidence. Where is that coming from? So the judge is giving evidence from the bench at your judgment. Of course, you can't challenge it at that point. And when we had that, George, my lawyer, George Maura, God rest his soul, looked at me, then I looked back at him, and he burst out laughing.
Because it didn't make sense.
Yeah, it didn't make sense. It was bewildering. If you're reading me, this is the evidence against you, and this is the decision we found, then I'd say, okay, fine. But if you start introducing things, Burale is wearing a beige suit. Then you say Burale was wearing a red suit. Then you tell me that South Sea is the same as Westlands. So you see, this is contrived. So I remember George looking at me from the bench. He just looked back, and I looked at him, and he burst out. Honestly speaking, we burst out laughing. Someone could have thought we were crazy, but it was a craziness in that decision because it was not based on the evidence that had been read. You recreate, and that's when I started suspecting, this is why this case could have been delayed, the decision could have been delayed. I don't know. I didn't want to come into that.
Right.
But I think at that point I said, there's something I'm learning. And it just awoken my conscience to how some systems operate.
Ladies and gentlemen, wow, you know, you've taken me aback. You know, this is a story of pain, walking in freedom. That's my take home on this first part. You decide to walk in freedom, forgiveness, resilience, and just trusting in your God.
Yep.
Wow. Please have more tea. See you after the break. This is the Omen Show. Well, thank you very much. This is the Omen Show. For you've just joined in, I'm here with a great man, Mr. Peter Ouko, a man who has a journey of resilience, forgiveness, healing, restoration. But what next? Well, Mr. Pete, you're telling us that we were bewildered. You've lost, and I'm just recapping this for the sake of the ones that have just joined us. Your wife found murdered outside the police station at the age of 24. You have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. So you go to the police station to find out what happened, and you get arrested for the same crime, for the murder that you had no clue about. So in and out, 60 days you're in the police station, but then now case has been heard and the judgment has been read, and you said you and your lawyer, may the Lord rest his soul in eternal peace, just got shocked at some of the things that were being said. It's like there are two different cases being discussed here.
Yep.
But the judgment was what? What was that?
The judgment, you're guilty, you're supposed to be hanged until certified dead. That's the judgment.
So the judge reads out and says, you've been found guilty of murdering your wife.
Yeah.
And the sentence is?
Death.
Death.
By hanging.
By hanging. Until certified?
Dead.
I've never heard of those things.
No, that is it.
Now, before we go to now prison, your mom is there.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest pain for a mother is to see a child suffering. Did you look at your mom at that time? Because at one time you and your lawyer looked at each other and you burst out laughing. What did you feel? I'm sure you went numb.
No, I'll tell you one thing. I went numb the moment I knew Jenny had passed on. The very first day in the cop station, and that's why I told you that's the moment at which I forgave. The very first point when someone says, lock this guy in, instead of saying, hey, Pete, how can we find out what happened?
Yeah.
You know, lock this guy in. So you have your predetermined ideas of what you want. That's when my mind went, that's when I went numb. But then after that, I said, God, I need the strength to carry on through this. The subsequent things, I can tell you, it's only God who can explain how it happened. Because I just had this inner strength, and even though there was turmoil all around me, there was inner peace. My focus was I needed to get justice for Jenny, however long it was going to take. So that's a decision I made the moment now I was told she had passed on. Now, secondly, Mom was there. And may God rest her soul in peace. She's a strong girl. She was a strong girl. Jenny was Mom's best friend. In fact, she was closer to my mom than to me. My mom was closer to her, than to me. They were this tight. You know, there are things Mom would confide in her and not me. That's how close they were. And I love that because, Jenny comes from one side of the country. Pete comes from another side of the country. And she got assimilated and she made it home.
Right.
So Mom not only lost a son being sentenced to death, she was still grieving over her daughter.
Who was very close to her.
Was very close to her. This was her daughter. So she also wanted justice for her daughter. She didn't tell anyone, set my son free. No. She said, we want justice for Jenny. You know, my mom was a teacher, and her ethics, some of the things you see we fear doing even today, it's because of how we were brought up, you know. So very strong ethics, the teachers of those days, you know them, Burale. You know, just look at them, you know,
yes.
I can't lose the line. so mom raised us in that, you know, love your neighbor, you know, the church-going kids, high discipline levels, respect. All that, respect. So we are not the type, even today at my age, I can't speak back at someone. You know, that's something I'm like, hiyo kiboko iko karibu. You know, you still feel that vibe.
But that's what these young boys and young girls
No,
are
the
doing
young
all
boys,
over the place.
our Jew story.
So now,
Yeah, but at that time, we were there like, okay, fine. Mama's lost her daughter. She's grieving. And I think that's when she went into depression.
Mom went into depression.
Yeah. And I don't think she ever recovered from it. Even when I came from prison, I would ask her, Mom, I'm home. Why are you not still happy? You know, and she never recovered from that.
So Pete, sentenced to death by hanging until certified dead.
Yeah.
Whisked to committee.
Yep.
First day in prison.
First day, you know, I remember we left court late. So the first night I slept in industrial area where I'd been in remand. And you know, you've gone to court, you've packed everything you've given, you know, you're like, I'm not coming back. I know I'm going home. And then you're back to prison. So guys are like, and you know, when you're convicted now, you don't sleep where you're sleeping before. You're put in a holding cell before you're taken to committee. And those days, guys who had been condemned to death were feared. You know, like you have the smell of death around you. Not knowing that, of course, there's a chance for appeal. But the moment you're convicted and sentenced to death, even your name would be written in red now. From blue or black, now it would be written in red in the official books. Yeah. You know, guys who are sentenced to death, the names are written in red in the official journal. So you went as a remandee, blah, blah, blah. You've come back, the red thing. So anyway, so I had the night there, and then the next morning, heading to committee. But I just told God, you know, si hata Yesu alikuwa jela kwani? No, and he came out. So I was just walking in that freedom. Let's go to committee. There are people in committee. The crazy thing is, the first thing when I went to committee, people are praising. So I was like, that's the first thing I saw. No, they didn't have the modern drums they have right now, we have right now. That time they were using to Ndarama, they had just made from, you know, empty oil tins. And they're just praising. And people looked happy to me. And they were human beings like me, you know. It's not about where you've come from, it's like where you now and how you're adapting to that. And that's why I keep telling guys, you can adapt to anything. Don't say because you've lost this job that is so high paying and now you can't downgrade as you start your life again and start afresh. You want to maintain that status and then you suffer and then everything suffers at the end of the day. You don't know where to go to. It's just about adjusting. Then God will raise you up from that ash again and then you start your life. You know, you rebuild. And I'm seeing people walking that journey. So to me it was like, yeah, every morning I'll still wake up believing I'm going home. It doesn't matter whether the station has changed. The faith remains the same.
But at some point, Pete, 23 hours a day with 13 inmates, you're not getting out. Mm-hmm. Did that do your head in? 23 hours a day. You know, the
thing is, just like I told you, I knew on my own I wouldn't handle it. So right. I forwarded that thing somewhere. Yeah, you deal with it up there. You know, if your promises are real, then deal with it. Then he makes it bearable for me. He made it bearable for me. I wouldn't tell you how I managed. I mean, we slept on one side because we were so packed. 6 of you on this side, 7 on that side, you know. So, alafu miguzi mengiana. So, because I'm tall, my legs reach someone's head on this side. And the other guy's legs, prisons were packed. And through all that, never got sick once. I mean, I've slept without cover, you know, sleeping on a bare floor. Not get sick once, you know. All my life in prison, I was never taken to hospital like Peter had fallen sick. No. Just a small pengine baridi mekupata, just that. But when God says it protects you, you know me, I just said I'm going to use your word. So I'll use your word against you. You know, in the book of Psalms, I think it says, you can sit down and talk with God. So we're just having a chat.
Come, let us reason together.
Yeah. So you see, si ulisema. So I'm taking your word.
All right. You are safe, never gotten sick. But there's the not so small matter of your children out there.
Yeah.
1 year, 2 years, 3 years. The torture, and I've heard and I've read a book by some of the people who are on death row, and they said one of the greatest tortures of death row is you don't know if tomorrow is the day. But since you trusted in God and you said, only forward, 5 years, now you have a 10-year-old, you have a 7-year-old. Mm-hmm. what was going through your mind? Did anybody ever bring them when they got of age to come and see you?
No,
you left
see,
them at 2 and 5.
You see, at 3 and 5.
Yes.
And you see, what I'm saying is, it's not just about forwarding. It's about telling someone, take control of that matter. So all the matters that I've left pending, I've left in your hands. I've trusted you with that. So meanwhile, you're helping me deal with this, but you handle the other brief. So I gave him the full brief. It wasn't me. I can't tell you it was my strength. I mean, everything. And some of my friends, one of my friends who you know could tell you this, because he used to visit me in prison. And I tell guys, people ask me, Pete, how did you do that? I just tell him, by faith. Because these kids, I haven't seen them for 8 years. I know that I'm going to file an appeal, which I've already filed. I've had the appeal. The appeal has been dismissed. But that does not tell me that God has dismissed my case. So every single thing is like, you can do whatever you want to do. And I'm sorry, I mean, some of the guys who had my case, they watch these shows, you know, and they know what happened. But then, I just say, that's not real. Let's just be true. But God is the one who vindicates you, not human beings. So some guys are like, okay, Pete, you told us you're innocent and you're convicted. So how come even the Court of Appeal has found you guilty? Like, do you guys know that I did my case at the Court of Appeal? Same drama. The lawyer who did it, both of them now, we laid Joseph to rest yesterday. Joe passed on 12th. You know, he's the one who did my case at the Court of Appeal. Great guy. And they were like, they gave it their all. And you go to judgment, you're told the judgment is ready again at the Court of Appeal. Then we're not going to read it because of XYZ. Then you have to start the case afresh, de novo.
So same script, different courts.
We restarted the case de novo and then had it. And then same drama. But anyway, I said, okay, fine. I'm not losing that faith. I'm still not losing hope, keeping hope alive. And we'll wake up every day ready to go home. So you go back to death row. You haven't seen your kids for all that time. And then one day, one of the worst cops in prison, back then we had torture and stuff. And one of the guys who was really feared comes and tells me, Pete, there's something that's disturbing me. Could you know someone called X? I say, yeah, that's my brother-in-law. So I'm like, God, what are you teaching? Why is this guy asking me this, I'm a tumwa nini, because he's a mean guy. We know him as a mean guy. And then he just starts engaging me. Then I'm learning as he's talking about, stuff. He tells me, you know what? I come from that same area. I told him, if you come from that same area, could you assist me trace my kids? Because I haven't seen them for 8 years. So he tells me, give me the names. So I tell him, okay, fine, X and Y. And then he goes, that weekend, he's going home. He takes another extra week. And then he comes back and tells me, Pete, I found these 2 kids. They go to this school. This is the first name. The first name look like the ones you gave me, but the second names are different. Then that's when I realized, oh, these second names are actually names of people I know from my in-law side. And I tell him those are names that I know from the other side, so those must be the 2 kids. And they're in class 8 at that time. So he goes and tells them, oh, this is a position. So when they clear class 8, in fact, they went and told the grandma, we want to go back. Yeah, we want to go back home. I mean, my daughter was very categorical. I know home. I want to go home. She left this side, my in-law's place. Young girl. She went all the way to Vihiga to mom. All the way. And so there was that joy of reunion, At that time when they cleared, my son had just gone for his circumcision rites and stuff. So he delayed a bit, then he came. And then my daughter, of course, was already home with my sister. So I got them after 8 years.
They came to see you?
They came to see me. So after 8 years now, of course, they were going to high school. Took them through high school by God's grace. And then...
Pete, the day they came to see you, what happened?
what happened is this. When they came, it's mom who brought them, my mom.
Right.
And my mom, I think she just wanted to mess with my head a bit. She had a crazy sense of humor. So she took my niece, who's almost the same age as my daughter, dressed them exactly the same. Exactly the same. They had jeans, they had white sneakers, they had same tops. And they resembled almost to a fault. At least back then they did. Then she brought them. So of course, back then I'd been made a leader there, and then we were allowed. Now after Uncle Moody came in 2003, the system started changing. So there was lots of reforms, great reforms. Great guy, Uncle Moody, great guy, God bless him. And then I remember going to the welfare office. So the kids are brought in with mom. No, I walk in and find them there. You know, there's a lounge like this. So you sit there, the welfare officer is somewhere there, mom. So mom is just sitting here looking at me, and the two girls are seated there. So we are talking, gassing. Then, you know, we've done it about 30, 40 minutes. But all this time, I can't place who my daughter is. That was the most embarrassing thing. And then when they're about to leave, mom asks, like, she makes a comment like, why are you behaving like you don't know who your daughter is? And I was just looking at both of them. So when she said that, I saw my daughter smile. I said, no, I know, that's the one. Yeah, but it was so embarrassing that, you know, 8 years, I left a small kid. Now she's a teenager,
yeah.
You know, and all grown and everything. Yeah, but then after that, they would always come when they were on holiday. They would come with my sister. They would come, you know, they would come and visit. And so we started growing together after the first 8 years. So the 4 years, and then they cleared. By God's grace, they did well. They went to uni. So that was restoration. Yeah, and then that takes me back to what I'd said. I mean, I gave him that burden, and he told me he's faithful. So
he did a fantastic job.
He did a great job. He's a great guy.
Your son?
He's an engineer.
Yes, because boys are different when it comes to their fathers, we don't show emotions as such. Take us back to the day your son came to see you. And in fact, just think about it, because I want to take us on a break, because I need to have some water. You need to have some water as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please hold on. This is the Omen Show. We're going to get a bit deeper on the last or the tail end of the show. You simply cannot afford to miss it, because if you miss it, you miss out. See you after the break. The Omen Show. Well, I'm sure you're being blessed. This is a story of a gentleman who has just said he forwarded everything to God. And he says, God, you have said this, you do it. How did he manage? I'm sure many of you are asking, how would I have managed if I was in the coolers for 18 years? Why is he not bitter? How did he forgive? Even having lost his mother through depression, does he blame anybody? Evidently, from what you're seeing and what you're hearing, he's let everybody go. And restoration is what is happening. Pete, seen your daughter, 30, 40 minutes, you don't know who your daughter is. I mean, I wish I met your mom. Alikucheza game hapo.
And I mean, before, because mom passed on in 2019. And I remember before she passed on, we'd just hang out and she'd talk and she'd, you know, I didn't even know, like, why I would go shags and she'd be like, don't do anything, just come sit here, we talk. You know, and she just wanted to talk and to share, you know, her journey, what she had been through and all that stuff. But the key thing that I learned through all this is that, you know, you could want to cause one person pain, but you cause an entire ecosystem pain. You know, and it's only through God's grace that, you know, people can go through some of these things they go through. But it's also about just accepting that this is the situation I am in. You know, many people talk about Pete being in prison 18 years. Bro, there are guys who are in prison out here. Forget about the committees we were in. Kuna tujela hapa inje. Just 1 week in that prison is worse than the 18 I did there. There are guys going through emotional prisons out here. Mental health is a major issue. And there's nothing worse than that prison, where you're in that cocoon you can't come out of. There are guys going through financial prisons. You know, wamekopa mpaka, hawajui watalipa vipi. And not that walikopa watumia vibaya. No, they borrowed this money because they believed it was for good. Then their businesses have gone bust because some corrupt people are playing them, you know, stuff like that.
Yes.
People are suffering. Families are suffering. In my daily interactions, I know families are going through hell. Not just because of COVID, but because of the environment some of us have created that makes it unfavorable for them to trade honestly.
Yes, sir.
We have people going through health prisons, you know. Someone is sick. I mean, we prayed for you, bro. We saw you struggling there. And we know many people made jokes out of it.
Sadly.
But we know that it's God who got you out of there.
Yes.
The other day we were praying for a brother who went for a heart bypass. You know that?
Yes.
And he's out by God's grace. But there are people who are like, that's a prison. For the time that your relative is in that hospital for 1 hour in ICU, bro, that's the longest prison.
It's true.
You know,
it's true.
So we have to keep praying for each other. We have to realize that the prison is not just the physical prison. There's the other side of prison that's killing people silently without people knowing. And yet we're not standing there with them.
Right.
We are watching them wither away, thinking just about that guy in that physical prison. That physical prison, yes, Ashai surround Ashaiweke mkono. So those guys are safe.
Pete, and I'll come back to that because I know you're doing a lot for society. Did you see men breaking in prison?
Yeah. Saw men breaking in prison. I saw men losing it in prison. I saw guys going bonkers, you know.
Completely.
Yeah, and I have a friend, Kiari, who committed suicide.
In prison?
In fact, he committed suicide at the Supreme Court here, upper. That building, at the cells downstairs. Because the injustice he had gone through, he felt he couldn't handle it anymore. Kiari was arrested, a young boy, underage. We were with him on death row. They were accused of a murder in Muranga. There's these some land buying companies that every time, I mean, now it's cooled. We thank God it's cooled. But every time a new official was elected, it was followed by death, murder, you know. I think it was called Kiomweri or something. So there was those cases. So Kiari was arrested with a group of other elderly people. But he was a young boy. Brought to prison. There were 7, I think. They did the case. He was convicted. And he maintained he was innocent. He went for his appeal at the Court of Appeal, right here in the CBD.
Yeah.
And he knew he was going home. He had faith he was going home. So when he went there and he was told your appeal has been dismissed and you have to go spend the rest of your life in prison, he just went down to the cells, took his belt and hanged himself there. So it's happened. When people just lose hope and feel, you know, some would lose hope, they'd look for drugs, they'd look for, you know, it was bad.
Take me to that moment when your son came to prison to see you.
Oh, my boy, he came with my sister. And he's very close, and they were very close with my sister. I mean, my sister, God bless her too, because she's been, you know, my sister was very close to Jenny, just like mom. And basically, I remember we were staying with her when we got my son. So basically that was her son as well. So they developed this closeness. And I remember when the kids wanted to come back, they said straight, they're going to their auntie. And so she's the one who basically took care of them until I came home. Mom would come from Shags, hang out with them, go back. But my sister was basically here with them all through, you know, going to school to check on them and just being the mother to them. And so they come with my son, and yeah, I mean, I'm like, this guy's grown big. You know, I think one thing with me is the way Dad brought us up. Dad used to tell us, like, you know, boys are not supposed to cry.
Mwanaume ni kujikaza.
Mwanaume ni kujikaza. So you hear that thing, you know, like, so me, I grew up knowing that I'm not supposed to express my emotions. You know.
But did you, when your son left, did you have moments?
Yeah, when he left, I was like, that's the first time I thought, like, why did these guys do this to this boy? He doesn't deserve this. Even for my daughter. My pain was like, why did you do it to these guys? You know, these are young people. They don't deserve this. They deserve more and better than this.
But Pete, you forgave.
Yeah.
Mama went into depression. Mm-hmm. Was it difficult also for your family to forgive other people? Because you said there's a whole ecosystem. You have a sister who is saying, my brother has been to the coolers, he didn't deserve it. Mm-hmm. Did she have a problem? Did she stick too long in the place of bitterness and unforgiveness? No,
I don't think my family is a bitter type.
Right.
My family is not the bitter type. Least of all, Mom. And I mean, 18 years she was there. Mom just passed on in 2019. You know, I came home, we were with her for 3 years after that. She welcomed me home. Her photos when we came out of prison. And I could feel the pain. I mean, when she came out of prison for the first time, I saw my mom cry. And and I didn't know how to handle her crying. I mean, how do you handle a 70-something-year-old crying? You've never seen her cry all your life, you know? And it was, you know, it was relief, it was joy, it was like, thank you, God, you've done this. But then, to me, it was just like, this is my boy, I have him back.
Right.
You know, that's the simplest thing to her. But for my family, I wouldn't speak for everyone, you know. But from what I know, our families are very forgiving type. That's what we were taught. You know, you don't hold, because if you hold into bitterness, you give your enemy strength over you. What your enemy wants to see is you down. And when they see you happy and they see you flourishing in God's presence, then like, oh, then I think we need to focus on that. Who's that making this guy happy when we want him down?
Peace and joy.
Yeah. So the mistake we make many times is to fall into that trap, like, you know, guys have pissed you off, so you want to fight it out with them, you know. These guys are getting under your skin, you want to... Watch out now.
You're on death row.
Yeah.
How did you get out? Because death row,
yeah.
They said death by hanging until certified?
Until certified death.
By,
No,
by
yeah.
a medical doctor.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you get out?
So the thing is, in 2016, because I mean, I told you every day, every year, I knew I was going home. And in 2016, I just took a leap of faith and wrote a letter to the president. No, I just sat down and told God, I'm going to do this. Because, okay, I loved taking my fast, praying. I remember in 2005, when you guys were starving out here, you had a big famine and, you know, kulikuwa njaa.
Nyinyi mlikuwa mnashiba.
No, you know, the prisons is, the rule is you have to be given food. You have to be given food, shelter. Hata kama sio ile standard unataka, but you have to be given that. Hata kama ni ugali ile hajapikwa vizuri, you had to be given that. And then, but then the thing is, we sat down and, you know, we were going through a prayer fast in December. And then it just came on death row like, I mean, you guys are eating and doing nothing. Why don't you just give the little you have and support those who don't have any at all? So I came out of my prayer fast and told my friends on death row, we were 102 at that time, in our block. And then I told them, guys, this is what I got in my prayer. Do you guys want to wing it with me? I said, fine. We don't need this food. We can give it out for 2 days. And then that was 102. So we asked for an appointment with the officer in charge. We sent the corporal in charge to go tell him. Because in prison, you're supposed to eat. If you don't eat, you're at here. So I went and shared with the officer in charge. And the officer in charge was like, I need to hear this better. Are you guys serious? Yeah, we said we're very serious. Could you share this information with the other guys in the prison? So at that time, we were about 3,000 in committee. So the message was shared with committee. Everyone was affirmative. We want to give our food to help the poor. I mean, the starving. They said, oh, committee locked. Well, could you ask the commissioner if he could ask the other prisons if they were willing to join us? And he asked the commissioner sent signal, the other prisoner said, Sawa, we want to do it. So on 5th January 2006, I remember, I was taken from prison to come hand over the food here at Jogo House to former VP, Modiawari, on behalf of all inmates. And the prison officers, great guys, when they noticed that, or when they saw that inmates were offering to give their food, they also said they're going to donate in cash. So they also gave kidogo salary. So we gave both cash and food. And then in 2007, during another fast, then that's when Crime See Power was born through that. So all through this, we just knew that God was guiding us in what to do and how to do it, and providing for how it would be done. But just having said that, taking a leap of faith, I wrote a letter to His Excellency the President and told him, I'm here, I've been here for something I didn't do. I don't agree with the decision, but I respect it. I respect the rule of law. So this is the position. I wasn't home for my kids' class 8 graduation. I wasn't home for their 4th form graduation. And they're now graduating in December, from university.
Grant me that wish to be there.
I'd love to be there. So I took it to the officer in charge. He was like, okay, fine. Forwarded it to the commissioner. Commissioner took it to the AG. AG took it to the Power of Mercy Advisory Committee. Up until, October 26th. By God's grace, we are out.
What was your initial reaction?
Prayed. Just prayed and thanked God. I mean, it was heavy that I'd been in prison for 18 years, but I was leaving behind guys who had been there for almost 30 years, 27 years, 25. So it was heavy. That we prayed and asked God, like, could you just open doors for all the deserving cases to go home. I'm lucky, I'm happy I wasn't alone. I mean, with me, others were also released from Langata, from Madare Mental Hospital and all that. So October 25th, 26th, we were home. Mom came, of course. And then, yeah. I mean, my kids came. My daughter first was like, Dad, you like pulling pranks on us? Because that time, now we had been allowed, you know, the prison's welfare office had phones, so you could use the phones to call your relatives. So we called the previous evening when the news came. And then it rained heavily that day. So we were requested, guys, do you really have to go now? It's raining, it's evening. Why did you go in the morning? Because they wanted to share the big moment with the country. And media, of course, had closed at that time. So you sleep in prison, but you know you're no longer supposed to be there. So in the morning, we got out, and that was on 26th, yeah, October. Yeah. So we got out, and then I have some crazy friends out here. Because one of them called me, Pete, I know you're out. He works there, where this information came from. You know him.
Yes.
So he tells me, Pete, I know you're out. And you're no longer in prison. So 26th, I'm out. 27th, he calls me for a gig. He tells me, like, you're akilia jela lazima utoe. Anza kufanya kazi na vijana. So that's how Ted pushed me into the, you know, like recalibrated me even before I would think that, you know, I need to settle
back into society.
Back into society. Like on 27th morning, he called me. There was a youth thing in Italy. He told me, I want you to do this. Come with me, talk to these youth. So I was like, yesterday I was in prison. Today I'm already
doing a function.
Doing a function with these young people. And so that was it.
You gave it to God, so God had you
Exactly.
And one thing I just want our viewers to know that you're actually the first inmate to get a law diploma while in prison.
Yeah, we decided to start, number one, to motivate the young people. My daughter was also doing law. And to motivate the young people. And number two, also to get justice for Jenny. That was very key to me, you know. I'd been helping guys with their appeals even before I studied law. I just had a passion for that. So I'd been writing appeals, the jailhouse lawyers. And it was fun. I mean, it was just fun doing those criminal cases and learning along the way. The moniker I had was that Pete will always tell you to pray before you go to court. So is it that he doesn't trust what is done or something? I always told them, you know, I believe in the bigger power. And I'm glad, I mean, in 2016, even though I came home, 6 of my clients in prison also got released from death row through the court system. So it was God's doing. And I decided to do that and study law just to get justice for Jenny, but also to help other young people.
Of course.
Get to know what their rights are.
Is that also why you think your daughter did law? Was she driven by that?
My daughter, I think she did law to get me out of prison.
Let me ask you a question. You don't have to answer because the case is still in court. Did they ever get the person who
I'm not going to answer that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
With all due respect.
You know, we respect that.
Yeah.
How is it now with your children are grown-ups? What are you doing for the young people? You missed out quite a few years. You have crime poor. And I want you to look at the camera here and speak to some young people. Just speak your heart. Some are involved in crime. Some are doing things thinking they'll get away with it. Please just speak to them for exactly 1 minute.
Yeah, you see, we started Crime Poor. Crime Poor, it's about you. It's about you, young person out there. But Crime Poor is not just about keeping off crime. Crime Poor is a community lifestyle. So what do you want to do with your life? There are opportunities out here. Sometimes you don't see them as a young person. But at Crime Poor, what we believe in is it's not about just you. It's about holistic development. What do you want? Where are you at now? And it also involves the adults. You know, the parents. We've shucked our roles and left the kids to do their own things. We are having challenges having kids who, you know, truant. They don't want to do schooling. They don't want to listen to their parents. And yet when you go back to it, you find the parents also have a role to play in that. We are not there for our kids. You know, COVID has done as good in one way that it enabled parents and their kids to bond, which wasn't happening before. So you young people, Crime Poor is about you. It's not about Pete. Pete is too old for that. And I'm glad that it's being run by young people. By God's grace, we've just won an international award, courtesy of the young people who are working in the community. And we are telling them, take this opportunity now. We want those young ethical leaders to take leadership now.
Crime,
and that's
see poor.
Crime, see poor.
Wow. A story of resilience, forgiveness, healing, and releasing all the pain. And a story on the foundation of trusting in God. This has been your friend and your coach, Robert Broyle, with the great man, Mr. Peter Ouko. And this is the what? The
Omen Show.
See you next week. God bless. Mr. Pete, if you could get yourself anything, what would you get?
Faith.
Where is the worst place you could get stuck?
Hell.
What would you do with 15 minutes of fame?
I don't need fame.
Where would you go if you're invisible?
I'm not a spirit, bro.
What is your favorite flavor?
Vanilla.
What is the one thing you own that you wish you didn't?
Smile.
Do you have a song that reminds you of a relationship? If so, what song is that?
Pokea Sifa reminds me of my relationship with Christ.
How many books have you read so far this year?
None.
Who have you met that you wish you hadn't?
Burale.
What is the worst job you could have?
Hating.
What is the thing you're most afraid of?
Nothing.
If you could paint anything, what would you paint?
Love.
What is the most interesting thing you have in your wallet?
My faith.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.